This Pitch Breakfast video is brought to you by Spangler and Agins, attorneys for Charlotte's startup community.
It was created to be lived, and for many of us, life happens very far from the doors of a church on Sunday. It's out here, where we live, in the midst of ordinary afternoons and not so ordinary circumstances, in the passionate pursuit of our dreams, and in singular moments that can last for a lifetime. It's here that God desires to dwell with us. These are the stories we tell. Your story, my story, our story. Together, we'll discover what happens when our lives encounter a perfect, loving God with the power to change them. This is the moment when the ordinary becomes extraordinary. The moment when our story becomes His story. We're All In Productions. Expect miracles.
All right. Well, I'm Brian Forrest. I have been in Charlotte for 22 years. I went to Charlotte and got my degree in finance. For 22 years, I've also been a Carolina Panthers fan. And yes, I'm still a Carolina Panthers fan, although the bandwagon has gotten a little less crowded lately. 5 years ago, I founded a company called All In Productions, Inc. We are a feature film and documentary film company that makes mainstream Christian film. It was the manifestation of a ministry I started with a church in the university area. In 2009, I released my first feature film. It was a very small film, made it for about $50,000, and I used all church members as actors and crew. Despite the humble nature of the project, though, we were able to garner a 100-city national theatrical release, national DVD release in over 500 retail stores, and worldwide TV broadcast on satellite TV. It was a pioneer of a new industry of these mainstream Christian films. In 2014, two ministers from Georgia came to Charlotte at the wooing of a group called David and Jason Benham. If you're not familiar with the Benhams, they are the fifth largest real estate company in the world, or the country, forgive me. They came to Charlotte. They used churches entirely as their support, and they shot the whole movie here in Charlotte and the surrounding areas. In September of 2015, just this past fall, War Room opened as the #1 movie in the United States on over 2,500 screens. At the same time, another movie called Bridge of Spies, which starred Tom Hanks, directed by Steven Spielberg, with a $40 million budget, ran at the same time, and they both made the same amount of money. War Room was made for $3 million, and it made $67 million. And Bridge of Spies, also running during the same time, was made for $67 million. This is a genre that's been growing for the last 10 years. And Hollywood has a big problem. Hollywood uses the box office as primarily an advertisement for a DVD release. The majority of films coming out of studios either break even or lose money at the box office based on the cost of production as well as the P&A, which is promotion and advertising. Christian films, however, are made for a fraction of the cost, and over the last 10 years have proven to be incredibly successful at the box office. All In Productions is in this genre. Right now, the biggest problem facing Hollywood studios is there is a high demand for these films, and there's no content. And the ability to bring films to the market is what they're seeking. So what they've done is they don't understand how to make these movies, so they've outsourced it to groups like me, All In Productions. We are a 501c3 film production company. We are seeking $25,000 in either tax-free gifts or low-interest loans with a minimum investment of 2 years. That's it. We're All In Productions. Expect miracles.
All right, let's keep going. Yeah, so my questions are, I'm still a little confused over what a Christian film is. Like, I have an idea based on my understanding of the market and the media, but I didn't feel like we got there.
Okay.
So my really pointed feedback is, you kind of said, the only data I have is that it's cheaper to make a Christian film than a traditional kind of Hollywood box office film. And there seems to be this kind of very captive and focused, demographic or group or cohort called Christians. And I'm like, okay, and then kind of closing with we're a 501c3 further kind of like leaves me with lots of questions. So
Okay.
I'd say more questions than kind of clarity at that point. So I think in general I'd want to see a little bit more upfront on here's what a Christian film is according to us. This is what All In thinks it is, and here's why we're addressing that market. And then the hey, we're a 501c3, which most people are going to take as you're asking for an investment or you're asking for a grant. Because that's the other thing is like where are we going with the conversation? Sure. So are you selling an opportunity to invest in the growth of the company and be an investor and partner with you, or would you like kind of grant money? So that would be a couple things that I'm hanging on.
Well, I may let you answer those before I ask my next question.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh yeah, as far as the first question, which is what is a Christian film?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the idea behind it is we're seeking to make mainstream films just like anything else that's out there. It's just our message is actually a Christian message. So the typical film is an ordinary guy who must overcome an extraordinary circumstance to achieve a desirable result. In our films, it's the same thing, an ordinary character who has to overcome an extraordinary circumstance, but does it through faith in God to achieve a desirable result. Yeah. The idea is that, everybody's the same. We all, have families. We all have challenges in life. How we address those challenges are different. We're introducing a different way, which is through faith in God.
Got it. And then the 501c3 angle, I'm kind of interested. Why is that unique, and why did you choose that?
Well, I come from a ministry background. We are not in this for profit. However, you take a film like War Room, which was also a nonprofit, but they partnered with a for-profit distributor who put about 5 million P&A, which is promotion and advertising, in it, and they probably took 80% of the box office.
Okay, so my questions are going to mirror a little bit of what Mark said. So, and I'm presuming, so everybody in the audience knows that a 501c3 is a nonprofit, and it would have been useful when you started. You said investor pitch, so that I think that got us focused on one thing. And given that it's a nonprofit, that's kind of a different mindset. So you probably need to get that out earlier in the presentation. With a 501c3, it's sort of okay. Well, what do you, and it sounds like from the example you gave, there's an opportunity to earn a lot of money. Where does that? What's the mission then of the 501c3? So I think that would be important in kind of laying that out. The example, comparative example that you gave, I thought was very good, right? So it was a Tom Hanks movie. No, it was who did you?
Bridge of Spies or War Room?
So War Room was
the Christian film.
The Christian film, and that made 67 in revenue. You said
it did,
and it cost how much again? Three. So that's kind of interesting. So I like that comparison. But again, now was War Room something you did or was something somebody else did? That was a little unclear.
I served on it. I worked on it, but no, it was a comparable project to what we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then so I really think if the ask is for donations, then with a nonprofit, I think one of the big things that you need to get across is what's the mission of the nonprofit,
sure,
right? And where does that money go?
Thank you.
And I've got a little bit of familiarity with Kenricks and facing the giants, and certainly Flywheel way back in the beginning, right? So immediately when you started talking about it and then comparing War Room, I thought you did a good job walking through the marketplace. Even I had some familiarity with it, but for those who didn't, I thought that was good. But what would be helpful is, in their early movies, right? They did the script and they did the production and then the distribution. Certainly with War Room, and as the movies have continued to progress, Mom's Night Out, right? All these movies, there have been some major partners on that side. So
right.
a clear description from you on what the focus is for All In production. Is it just on finding the script, telling the story, the screenplay, the writing, all that kind of stuff? Certainly All In Productions leads me to think that that's just part of it. Actually producing the movie is one of your goals, but just kind of completing that story would be helpful.
Sure. Thank you.
I'm good. Yeah.
All right, let's get to the audience. Who has questions for Brian? Is there other competitors? I'm sorry. I just wonder who else is this a big market that you're competing with, or that you're doing together?
Kind of the joke right now is there's one major Christian film every year, so obviously it's not a big market yet. if you compare it to like contemporary Christian music, which is enormous, and there's every genre available, there's thousands of artists that are, under labeled. Comparatively speaking, it's much smaller. There's about 3 major Christian filmmakers. As he mentioned, the Kendricks are probably the largest, another group out of Houston, and then the Irwin brothers out of Alabama, which just made a movie called Woodlawn with John Voight that came out in October. So there's about 3 or 4 big players.
I think your ask was for $25,000.
Yeah.
And you mentioned War Room cost $3 million to produce.
Right.
So what does $25,000 get
Yep.
you, and
Good
will you
question.
need to raise more money beyond that?
Yeah, $25,000 is really our seed money. The idea is trying to get all-in productions to a place where we can learn how to fly on our own. So a lot of that's going to be how to raise the revenues, which in our case comes through donations. The for-profit side is really partnerships, as he mentioned. We would partner with a for-profit company whose intent would be to make a profit. Our intent is the message. They would come in, see the market, see the opportunity, and make the profit.
Sounds like War Room is like one of these grand slams. I mean, it'd be really interesting to understand what other movies are actually out there, right? Because you're only going to have, like you said, one War Room a year.
Yeah, it's really been the last 10 years, actually, as you mentioned. The Kendricks started with a small film they made for $20,000 called Flywheel in 2005. Since that time, they've made 5 films. Fireproof in 2008 made over $50 million. Courageous was their follow-up. A movie came out in 2014 called God's Not Dead, which was marketed entirely through social media, also done by churches in Houston. Made over $50 million. They're coming out with a film called God's Not Dead 2. Shocking, right? In April, and which most people within the Christian genre think is going to be the big film of 2016. There's so much opportunity. There's so much more need for more than one film a year. I mean, there is.
So you have to long ahead and you just throw on the slide that you talked about for 10 seconds just to show that there are all these that are making money.
Sure. Yeah, it's a great idea.
Hey, one more point I was going to add to Thad's as well, I forgot. I think this goes for anyone. Whenever you're saying I'm asking for money, this is an investor pitch, I think it's requisite to have, when you say 400,000 or 25,000, literally on a slide or somewhere, just lay it out, like 25% for marketing, 15% for, whatever, equipment. Just say, like, I've thought about what I'm going to do with your money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, that's just so, I just saw a pitch the other day where it was just super tight. It was like $500,000, 4 categories, 25% each, done. And then we can dive deeper there. But it just adds a level of credibility that, I think a lot of people overlook, so.
Right, any additional questions?
Well, in the current environment, political environment, secularism and everything, I mean, are you seeing some pushback from box offices wanting to show Christian films? I mean, maybe there's a market in churches to show these films, but I just wonder, is this something that maybe is not a good idea? Pushing a Christian message. I mean, I don't know. I am a Christian. I go to church, but the world is just different than it was even 10 years ago.
Well, the good news is that Hollywood, they're driven by money. So if you can make money, they're going to show your film. War Room opened on 2,500 screens. Woodlawn was on 3,000 screens. So if you can make money, they're going to show it. That's the game.
All right, let's give Brian a big round.
All right.